Proof hunt. Evidence without illegality. I drew a hard line. No hacking, no lockpicks, no gotchas. I couldn't defend in a courtroom. Only what lived in the open, what she handed me, what any auditor could collect with a clipboard and a patient face. That rule kept me honest and, more importantly, made the story admissible. The car gave me the first breadcrumb without asking. Her SUV's navigation history remembered everywhere she told it to go. Top of the list, Oaks. Not a hotel. A furnished rental with month-to-month terms, tucked behind a dentist's office and a maple tree. I tapped it, and the screen showed the route she'd driven so often the system suggested it on weekday afternoons. I wrote down the address. I didn't touch the screen again. Our doorbell camera is a narcissist. It reflects more than it records. One evening, she came home with a neatly folded overnight bag and takeout for two from a place that doesn't put utensils in single orders. In the door's black glass, I saw her reflection and the handle of a bag with a boutique logo from the rentals block. I saved the clip to my account, the account we both share, with a note, 2 portions Tuesday. I booked the same rental the following week under my name. I told the host we needed a quiet spot to work. He confirmed availability and, without prompting, mentioned they had repeat business from a corporate guest who paid in cash sometimes. He said it with the tone of a person who loves predictable money. I kept my face neutral and asked about parking. Receipts started singing if you held them to the light. The same bottle of Malbec from the shop near the rental appeared on her personal card and again on a corporate card 2 minutes apart. 2 charges, 2 cards, 1 cashier ID. The corporate one ran to a cost center labeled Client Hospitality. I printed both statements, circled the timestamps, and drew a line that any forensic accountant would see without squinting. I didn't rummage through her phone. I waited for what she put on the counter. She handed me her keys and wallet one night while she changed upstairs. The Lyft ride detail was still open. Driver name, drop-off cross streets, time. I didn't screenshot. I didn't forward. I took a pen from the cup and copied the intersections into my notebook. Ink makes a different kind of truth. I made my own truth stronger with a journal that could testify for me. Each night I emailed myself a summary, date, observations, exact phrases, links to public things like the dealer's hours page and the rental listing. The emails created a time-stamped chain of custody I couldn't edit without leaving fingerprints. I kept the tone dry. Observed, MSP deposit at 3:04 a.m. Bank statement mailed to residence. Did not open. It read like a scientist, not a spouse. Across town, Oaks smelled like lemon cleaner and borrowed linen when I walked in. I took no photos. I noticed the box of herbal tea she likes and the corkscrew we own in Twin, and I wrote those down in the journal later. In the guest book, a hand I recognized had printed Great Wi-Fi 3 weeks earlier. I didn't touch the page. On our shared iPad, which sits on the coffee table and begs to be used for recipes, her cloud photo stream populated with a reflection of a lobby piano, same one I'd noted on Thursdays. No faces, just the piano, the glass, the hint of a blazer sleeve I didn't own. I screen recorded the slideshow, not the photos, capturing the metadata timestamp the device floats in the corner. It was the tablet we both used. It recorded me pressing play. That mattered. I needed one more thread to knot the financial with the personal without stepping over a line. I walked into the metals dealer during business hours and asked about IRA-eligible bars like any cautious investor. The clerk gave me the spiel about custodians and markups and depositories. On the counter sat a stack of brochures stamped with the same registered agent name I'd found tied to MSP Holdings. I took a brochure, thanked him, and left. On the back, someone had helpfully printed their Thursday late pickup policy. I highlighted it at home and slid it into my file. I didn't try to follow her into the vault. I used the vault's love of documentation. I scheduled a contents audit for our joint box and requested that a weight log be printed and sealed by a notary that day. The attendant asked if I wanted the serials included. I said yes, knowing which serial would appear and which wouldn't. Process is a better witness than anger. Her corporate expense report portal has a public-facing FAQ that lists allowable categories. Conference center isn't one for meals and incidentals. It's a venue charge. Her receipt labeled as conference center covered a boutique hotel bar tab with 2 appetizers and a dessert we never order. I saved the FAQ page, not her account. Policy versus practice, printed in black and white. Every 30 seconds I checked myself. Was I building a case or feeding a grudge? Each time, the evidence nudged me forward. The story wasn't a melodrama. It was a ledger. She had funneled marital earnings into a personal IRA via a shell that smelled like a cellar, then converted them into metal that slept behind a door that logs each breath. With the journal stacked and the legal clean, I moved assets I was allowed to move. My rollover complete, my depository entry recorded, my beneficiaries updated. What I did next would be reversible only by both signatures, not just mine, and would sit well with any judge who asked me to explain my sequence. The trap wasn't the tungsten bar. The trap was the paper around it, folded neat, filed right, and quiet enough to let her walk into it on her own. The bank maneuver, paper cuts that bleed. I took a Wednesday off like it was a doctor's appointment and sat across from my IRA custodian with a stack that sounded boring and bled quietly. In-kind transfer, I said. Bars and cash equivalents, same titling, new trustee. He nodded, verified identity twice, and read the script to the regulator's love. We initiated the transfer. My assets stood up, walked across the street on paper, and sat down where only my key worked. No alarms, just forms. On my way out, I called the bank. Freeze the joint line of credit, I said. Prevent new draws. Polite hold music, then confirmation. Also remove the authorized user from my personal cards. They read back her name, removed it, and emailed the notice to both of us. I didn't hide it. Sunlight keeps lawyers calm. I updated beneficiaries that afternoon. The living trust we drafted when we still believed in small funerals got refreshed. I amended the living will to name my sister as health proxy. That one made me swallow hard. I clicked save anyway. The point wasn't punishment, it was triage. At the depository, I met my custodian's rep and completed the rollover of my assets into the metal sleeve that would sleep exactly where the log could see them. Serial numbers matched purchase sheets. The attendant weighed the new arrivals, stamped the ledger, and slid me a copy with the notary seal embossing the page like a bruise. Control shifted with a sigh, not a bang. Then I lit the fuse I needed others to notice. I sent the custodian a routine request. Please verify and reconcile recent transactions attributed to MSP credits interacting with account XYZ. No accusations, no adjectives. A micro audit by another name. Bureaucracy loves neutral verbs. Their acknowledgement came back with a ticket number and the promise of review. If MSP smelled like a dealer in a shell, the airflow would carry it into their vents. I scheduled the gift appointment with the banker who handles depository customers like us. Professional smile, neutral tie, a notary at elbow. We'll prepare standard consent forms and a contents audit, he said. Anything else? A spousal waiver, I said, for rollover efficiency. He shrugged at the phrase like it was oat milk. He slotted it into the packet. The timing mattered. I needed one more pass over the terrain before I let her in. Her smartwatch betrayed her like it had before. A calendar alert popped up during dinner. She lifted her wrist without thinking. MSP delivery, Thursday 4:30. I kept my eyes on the pan and asked about salt. Thursday came and I shadowed from 2 blocks back. She cut into the dealer's alley, slipped through the buzzard door at 4:33, and came out at 4:58 with a lighter gait and a tiny relieved smile that said chores were done and secrets were safe. She texted me a photo of a latte that didn't exist in our city and wrote, running late. I didn't answer. I rerouted to the vault and asked the attendant to note chain of custody weight changes on our joint box when we arrive tomorrow. We can log any delta against your ledger, he said. Sign here to request. I signed. On the bank side, the joint line freeze posted. The email pinged both of us. She texted, why did the card decline? I replied, fraud monitoring flagged it. I'll clear it in person tomorrow. It wasn't untrue. Fraud is what we were dealing with, even if the system didn't know it yet. My transfer posted overnight. My metals sat where they should. Traceable, boring, solid. Her MSP-driven stash, whatever it looked like in the depository's belly, remained under her. Personal IRA's custodian only. I couldn't touch it. I didn't need to. Isolation is a kind of lock. I met with the banker early to rehearse politeness. We'll keep the language neutral, he said, scanning my folder. No commentary. Please, I said. I'm not here to perform. He glanced at the spousal waiver. She'll sign this in 10 seconds. I nodded. She signs anything that smells like HR. Before lunch, my lawyer received my nightly journals bundled by week. He replied with one line. Preservation letters ready when you say go. I didn't say go yet. I wanted her to sign in a room that records calm. I made one last call to our insurance agent and raised the umbrella liability coverage to an amount that would make even a bad day survivable. Not because I expected fireworks, but because rain falls when it's least convenient. Paper cuts bleed longer when you ignore them. At home, I cooked and said nothing. She floated through the kitchen on that citrus cloud that had become a tell. Tomorrow's going to be cute, she said, kissing my neck. Depository date. The dummy bar felt like a confession she hadn't made yet. Same heft, same glint, different soul. I wrapped it in a napkin to mute the clink. The trap wasn't the metal, it was her attention. She always reached for what sparkled. Morning arrived with polite weather. We walked into the bank like a couple doing adult things together. The banker greeted us with his neutral tie and pushed the folder across the table. "We'll start with standard consents," he said. She smiled and reached for the pen like it was lipstick. I let the forms walk her downhill. Signed here, initialed there, dated without pause. When the spousal waiver arrived under her hand, she barely looked at it. "For rollover efficiency," she read aloud, satisfied by the boredom. She signed. The notary stamped. The room exhaled. "Content audit?" the banker asked. "Please," I said. He nodded to the attendant. "Weights will be compared to your ledger." I set the velvet pouch on the table and watched her pupils dilate. Paper cuts had done their work. Now the blood would show. The near miss. She moves first. Her wrist lit up before dessert, the way it does when she forgets I'm watching. She flicked her eyes to the notification and away in one practiced motion. I caught the ghost of it. MSP delivery, Thursday, 4:30. She kept stirring the pan like the words were weather. I tasted the sauce, said it needed salt, and logged the time in my head. Thursday, I parked 2 blocks back, a nobody in a line of cars with expired meters. She cut into the alley at 4:27, buzzed through the metal door at 4:33, and reappeared at 4:58 without a bag, without anything you could photograph, lighter in her shoulders. The lightness made me angrier than the lie. She texted me a stock latte photo at 5:02, foam art. I recognized from a chain we don't have, captioned "running late." I watched that text arrive and chose not to respond. Some silences teach faster than words. I drove straight to the vault and asked the attendant to add a note to our file. "When we come tomorrow, record chain of custody weights, compare against our ledger, flag any delta." He handed me a form. I signed where process told me to sign, and he slid the carbon copy into an envelope with our names printed clean. Bureaucracy is slow, but it's faithful. It shows up when feelings don't. At home, she floated through with citrus and relief. "Traffic," she said, kissing my cheek. "Tomorrow's cute." I nodded and handed her a glass of water. I checked my transfer status on my phone in the pantry where the signal is worst and felt the small satisfaction of control. Posted. My medals had landed. My assets had already crossed to the side of the chessboard where only my piece could reach them. Her MSP route sat isolated on her side, all hers and nobody else's, exactly where a freeze could find it. That night, in bed, she curled close and spoke into my shoulder. "We're good?" she asked. She meant, "Did the latte convince you?" "We have an appointment," I said, and kissed her hair. She slept hard. I didn't. Morning came clear and ordinary. I arrived early to the depository to repeat the same instruction to a different attendant, redundant by design. "Please note any weight variances against our ledger," I said. He tapped the keyboard, nodded, and printed a fresh audit request with my signature line waiting. I signed again. The sound of the notary's embosser through the wall felt like a heartbeat. At the bank side, the joint credit line freeze hit the system. She texted me from a register, a clipped. "Our card just declined." I sent back, "Fraud monitoring flagged. I'll clear in person." She replied with a thumbs up and no suspicion because the story fit the kind of household hiccup we've had 100 times. The truth wrote alongside the cover. This was fraud, just not the kind the clerk cared about. The near miss arrived at 9:13 a.m. when my custodian called with the voice they use when they need you to verify your own name. "Routine reconciliation," he said. "We're reviewing transactions interacting with an entity called MSP. Can you confirm you initiated any?" My mouth went dry. "No," I said, steady. "I requested verification, not initiation." He thanked me, read a disclosure, and said any unusual activity may be restricted pending review. He didn't say the word freeze. He didn't have to. On our way to the vault, she hummed. Humming is her tell when the next move is already done. I kept my hands loose on the wheel and my face open. In the lobby, she reached for my arm. "I've been thinking," she said low. "After we do this, we should move some of my old stuff into a cleaner setup, fewer accounts." I smiled like she had invented consolidation. Love that. Inside the private room, I asked the attendant to log the contents audit before we opened the box. He glanced at the request slip I'd filed yesterday and generated a small smile that looked like respect for people who like rules. He weighed, he recorded, he compared to my ledger. "Matches?" he said. "My ledger, not hers." Her jaw tightened 0.5 millimeter. Her bag clinked when she shifted in her chair. Not loud, enough. She glanced down like sound could be smoothed with a palm. I opened the velvet pouch and set the sealed bar on the table. Her eyes drank it. She didn't reach for the waiver. She had already signed. She didn't reach for my ledger. She had already allowed it to be right. She reached instinctively toward weight. I watched her realize the timeline had betrayed her. Whatever she'd moved yesterday sat wherever it sat. Her custodian's name on it, her signature under it, her depository slot holding it. My transfer had posted before hers could pretend to be ours. She had moved first and still arrived second. She smiled at me, trying to reassert narrative. "I love this," she said, meaning the bar, the ritual, the illusion that control was shared. I smiled back and slid the sealed bar an inch closer. "Good," I said. "Let's build on it." The public polite trap. We sat across from the banker in a room that breathed money and manners. I set the velvet pouch on the table like a centerpiece. He smiled the way professionals smile when they know they're part of someone else's ceremony. "We'll proceed in order," he said. "Consents, depository rules, contents audit." She nodded, eyes flicking between his tie and the gold under plastic, already choosing where to focus. I raised a small paper cup. "To our future," I said. She clinked it with a bright, performative grin, then reached for the pen without being asked. The spousal waiver slid into her hand disguised as oatmeal. "For the rollover efficiency," I said lightly. "Standard." She skimmed the bolded headers, found nothing exciting, and signed in a confident swoop. The notary stamped. The room stayed calm. The banker explained depository rules in a gentle drone. Access requires dual authentication. Contents cannot be pledged, encumbered, or removed without mutual consent per your filed agreement. Audits available on request. Serial logs on IRA-eligible items. Weights recorded when requested. She nodded at all the right beats, eyes drifting back to the sealed bar like it was telling her a sweeter story. Right, she murmured. Mutual consent. I slid our joint asset schedule across the table. House, cash, my rolled IRA holdings, the single bar serial, ledger totals. A tidy column labeled Joint Depository declared contents. She traced the numbers with her finger, then tapped the line with performative casualness. "Looks good," she said, as if she had read it, as if any omission were intentional teamwork. "Before we place the bar," I said, "let's run the contents audit." I looked to the banker. He gestured to the attendant. The attendant wheeled in a small scale and an older printer that still used perforated paper, the kind that makes people trust printouts. "We'll verify the current inventory against your ledger," he said. "You authorized bar-by-bar weights." He opened the box, gloved, efficient. The printer clicked and chirped. The scale hummed. Numbers arrived in that boring, lethal way numbers do. He read off a weight, then a serial, then glanced at my ledger. "Match," he said. Another weight, another serial, another match. It was my music. I let it play. She leaned in, chin held high, composed. A small muscle in her cheek timed its own metronome. When the attendant closed the box and tore the paper free, the banker clipped the audit to our packet. "Your ledger is clean," he said. I thanked him. She made a low sound that could pass as agreement, could pass as a swallow. "Now the deposit," the banker said, pleasant again. "We'll record the new item by serial and add weight to the ledger." He angled the forms toward me. I lifted the sealed, IR-eligible bar and set it in his waiting hands. He read the serial aloud. I repeated it. She repeated it too, quietly, like a charm. The bar hit the scale, the printer chattered. The numbers landed exactly where I knew they would. The attendant returned it to the box with care, then locked the door and noted the time. I placed the second bar, the tungsten twin, on the table between us, letting it catch the ceiling light. "A matched pair," I said, softer. "One for the ledger, one for the reminder." She smiled in a way that belonged on holiday cards. "I love symmetry." She reached, then paused. "This one isn't recorded?" she asked, not quite a question, more an invitation to collude. "A token," I said, "not an asset." Her eyes flashed with relief. Relief is a tell. The banker recapped the rules, his tone neutral. "As a reminder, per your consent, any removal, substitution, or pledge of depository contents requires both present and recorded consent. Any discrepancies discovered during audit trigger an internal review." He looked at her, not me. "Questions?" She shook her head, breezy. "All standard," she said. I watched the flicker behind her eyes when he said discrepancies. She kept her posture perfect, but the narrative shifted for her a fraction. She'd expected to steer. Instead, she was being steered by the furniture. The audit had matched my ledger, not hers. The box held exactly what my paper said it held. There was nowhere for her to slide a private story in. "Before we wrap," I said, "I'd like a printed copy of the chain of custody log for today's access. Timestamps, signatures." The banker nodded, snapped his fingers at the attendant's soft bell, and the printer woke for one more page. Time of entry, names, IDs, The moment the box was opened, the moment it closed. Boredom that could testify. She straightened, working to repolish the moment. "You're thorough," she said, smiling at me as if we were still a brand. "I'm lucky." I returned the smile, softer. "We're careful," I said. It landed like a diagnosis. The attendant handed us our packet. Consents, audit, chain of custody, ledger updated. She placed her palm on the velvet pouch like it was a pet. "Can I keep this?" she asked, meaning the twin. I nodded. "It's yours," I said. She slipped it into her bag with a satisfied exhale, a tiny clink answering from inside. She didn't hear it the way I did. We stood. The banker thanked us for our business. She thanked him for his patience. We were two people playing a scene we'd rehearsed for different audiences. In the hall, the air cooled. She leaned close. "I'm proud of us," she whispered. I looked at the embossed seal through the packet and said, "Me too," because paper had done what love didn't. As the door closed behind us, her phone buzzed. She didn't check it. She was still smiling at the bar she thought she'd gained, not the future she'd just signed away. Confrontation, truth on paper. I didn't raise my voice. I raised a folder. The private room door latched. The banker excused himself for coffee, and I spread the pages like a map of a city she thought was hers. "We're going to be clear," I said. "No yelling, just paper." First, the rental. Printed confirmation from Oaks, my booking the week after hers, the host's message about repeat business, and a photo of the guest book page in my handwriting next to Great Wife F in a hand that looked a lot like hers. I set down the boutique wine charges, 2 receipts, 2 cards, same timestamp, same cashier ID. I placed the company policy page that says Conference Center isn't an M&I category. Then the lift intersections, copied in ink, same Thursdays, same alley behind the metals dealer with the buzzer. Next row, MSP Holdings. State registry printout with the P.O. box, the registered agent tied to the metals shop brochure. Her cloud backup's original file name, MSP Dealer Invoice OSET, captured by the system that forgets nothing. ERA deposit slip mailed by bank error, 5 figures at 3:04 a.m., memo line MSP. The custodian acknowledgement of my verification request, timestamped. The depository's chain of custody audit from today. "Your ledger matches," I said, tapping the notary seal. "Not yours, mine." She stared at the pile like it might rearrange itself into something flattering. "You snooped," she said, voice very even. "You went through my life." "I used what you handed me, what the mailman misdelivered, and what public records publish," I said. "No hacking, no passwords, just gravity." Her jaw tilted. "We were unhappy," she said. "You turned into a spreadsheet. I tried to build something safe. Metals aren't illegal." "Affairs aren't illegal either," I said. "They're relevant when you charge wine to corporate and route marital earnings into a personal IRA through a shell vendor that smells like your dealer. What you did is hideable, not harmless." She reached for indignation like a scarf. "You have no right to judge what I do with my retirement." I slid a single page forward. "Marital assets table," I said. "Your salary and bonuses during the marriage are marital income. Routing them into metals through MSP doesn't make them separate. It makes them discoverable." I let the word sit. "You funneled marital earnings into personal IRA metals with a fake vendor," she snapped, quiet. "Don't call it fake." "Then call it what the registry does, a P.O. box tied to your dealer's agent," I said. "The custodian is reviewing MSP-related activity." The banker reappeared at the threshold, saw the weather in the room, and set the coffee down without comment. If they see what I see, it freezes until answers arrive. I nodded to him. "We'll need 5 minutes." He stepped out and pulled the door soft. I slid the divorce packet across. "I'm filing," I said. "I'm not emptying accounts. I'm not moving the goalposts. I'm not bleeding us out. Temporary support per statute. Discovery immediately. No access to the joint line because it's frozen. No charging my personal cards because you're no longer authorized. We'll divide on math, not narrative." She didn't touch the packet. She touched the velvet pouch. "You brought me here to humiliate me," she said. "On our anniversary." "I brought you here because paper behaves," I said. "I won't compete with your excuses. I want a record and a notary. You already signed the spousal waiver. The box moves nowhere without both of us. You're punishing me." "I'm protecting me," I said. "You can keep the token." I nudged the tungsten bar toward her. "A reminder. It weighs the same," she blinked. "That's cruel." "It's symbolic," I said. "A mirror." She glanced at the door, calculating angle and audience. "We can fix this," she said, softer, a last reach for skin. "We don't have to burn it down." "You burned it in Thursdays," I said. This is a fire break. Her phone lit. She tilted it under the table. A name flashed I didn't need to read. She stood halfway, sat again. I need to make a call, she said. Make it, I said, and slid the packet closer. But understand the order of operations. My lawyer sends preservation letters today, to your custodian, to the dealer, to your employer's HR. If corporate cards touched conference center at a boutique hotel, she flinched at HR like it was a slap. You'd ruin my career. I'm not sending a press release, I said. I'm sending a request to keep records from being shredded. Your choices invited your employer, not me. She put both hands flat on the table, steadying herself. You always wanted control, she said, a last pivot. Here it is. Control would have been us reading statements together, I said. This is a ledger telling the truth because you wouldn't. She reached for the pouch again. I let her lift it. The tungsten clinked in her bag with the small, guilty sound it always makes. She stood, gathered the packet mechanically, and looked at me for the version of me that used to joke our way out. I didn't offer it. At the door, she paused. You're crueler than I thought, she said. I'm calmer than you hoped, I said. She left to call him. The room shrank and widened at once. I took the notary copy, signed where my name needed to live, and slid my key onto the table. I didn't need to shake. The paper did it for me. Fallout. Lover, employer, custodian.